Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Leadership Talk podcast. We are honored today to have Veronica Farmer here with us, and Veronica and I are going to get into all kinds of great conversation today. But Veronica, first and foremost, welcome. Thanks for joining us on the call today.
Thank you so much, Vicki. I'm absolutely delighted to be here today.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. And before we jump into, because I know once we get started, you and I are going to be less like blah, 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 blah. So I do want to give our audience a little bit of context about your background, who you are and what you do. So for our audience, let me say thank you for joining us today. I know you have a choice as to what podcast you listen to, and we are super grateful that, we are reaching out to people in 23 different countries so that you can learn from amazing women and individuals about what their journey is like and how that might impact your life. So thanks for joining us today. So let me give you a little feedback about Veronica. So Veronica has a BAH and she has her executive MBA. She's a director of innovation and partnerships at the University of Ottawa. Veronica has been an entrepreneur and marketing leader with global expertise in strategic marketing and go-to-market planning, branding, and communications, as well as PR and IR. She has 20 plus years of leading marketing initiatives for startups and private and public organizations. She also has 10 plus years championing a successful full service agency offering strategic guidance, digital marketing, branding, and go-to-market planning for startups, B2B and B2C companies. She is a strategist with valuable transferable skills and diverse experience in different sectors, as well as profit and loss statement, sales, and new product introduction. She has successfully launched several award-winning products, built brands, and developed campaigns to drive revenue growth and brand awareness for those B2B and B2C companies. She's worked from semiconductors to SaaS to consumer lifestyle products. So such a great variety of experiences, Veronica. You've kind of touched everything, and then all the work you're doing with Canada North and with University of Ottawa, like got your hands in lots of good stuff. So we're excited to tap into that today.
Thank you, Vicki. And when you say it, it just sounds like, wow, is that me? So thank you for that amazing introduction.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It is fascinating how when we hear somebody else say it about us, it's like, oh, wow, I have done a lot.
That sounds pretty good.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm all right. Love that. I love that. So, before we really get into more specific detail, I'd love just for you to share with our audience, what's led you to the path you're on today and sort of some of the milestones that have gotten you here.
Yeah, thank you, Vicki. So I've had a wonderful opportunity to have many roles in my career, and maybe that's why it's a little bit hard to wrap our arms around all of the things that I've actually been blessed to be able to do. I've had opportunities to be a brand ambassador for clients. I've been a senior communications and marketing executive. I love my role as a community builder. You touched on Canada North, Canada's largest tech park. Gosh, I've been an entrepreneur. I've been a mentor, convener, collaborator, and might as well add connector. I get a lot of energy from connecting people and collaborating with them. Another piece of that, although it's not the professional part, but this personal part, being a mama is a lot of a joy piece to that. And, as many women, we juggle that alongside, a fairly hefty professional career. And for me, that's a role that I do add to my portfolio of them. I started my professional career with vim and vigor when I was young in business development and consulting, and then really moved quite quickly into strategic communications and corporate marketing. Did a lot of different roles in that corporate setting with investor relations and public relations, but really moving quickly at a young age to be a sort of a trusted advisor. And that gave me a real sense of wanting to help navigate, whether it be a client through the marketing communications company or in my corporate role, moving companies to the sort of the right place to help them transition into a new phase of success. I was in high tech in Ottawa. I think I started right before the big, change in the 2000s, but moved fairly quickly through that to starting my marketing communications company in 2007. About 15 years of doing wonderful roles, Vicky, to really help clients as a chief marketing officer, as again, having that very, interesting space of being at the table to sort of walk through clients who are moving to different phases for their company, growth or acquisition, what have you. Anyway, I've spent the most part of my professional career in Canada North. It's just outside downtown Ottawa in what we call Canada's largest tech park. It's an amazing ecosystem of technology and innovation. University of Ottawa, I had a chance to touch base with them when I was working with the Canada North Business Association for a year there. And really, they asked me to take an exceptionally delightful role to help build their brand in this tech park and to work with different industry partners and community partners. And so with that, I've had a great opportunity, to work with university. And if I could give a little bit of an update, Vicky, to my bio, I'll just quickly say that I actually am delighted to say that I will be moving to a new role with a company that is probably not unheard of at least in Canada, possibly globally. I'll be working for Wesley, Clover International, which is founded by Terry Matthews. He's a great Canadian tech icon. And I will be moving to a VP of marketing role there. And Vicky, I'm delighted to say that I am the first female executive at that C-suite level. So I can't wait to roll up my sleeves and get into that.
Oh, Veronica, that is brilliant. I've heard nothing but amazing things about Terry. Actually, we want to have him in one of our events coming up in the spring.
Well, then I'll be your point of contact then. Sorry, Vicky, to interrupt.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And I am so thrilled for you. You've had such an incredible career. And I'm sure one thing our audience is asking is, how did you find the courage to say yes? Like, you're a mom, all these great opportunities, you've been, in corporate entrepreneur. What drove you, Veronica, to keep saying yes to these opportunities?
So I've been blessed with, different opportunities to be able to put myself in a situation where I bring my best skills, my experience. I tend to look at these opportunities first, how can I lend my support? How can I bring my skills? What would it look like if I really was able to turn on the Energizer Bunny that I'm often recognized as? What would that look like? And I often look at opportunities and a context of people and timing. Can I put my best foot forward? What would the value be? And by the way, how receptive or how would the context allow me to be me? How can I put my fingerprints on this? We very often, as women look at executive roles, even regular roles, and say, gosh, don't know if I could do that. Not sure if that really fits me. But it's to allow you that opportunity to explore intentionally, what would it look like success for me? And then to go for it, and then to help shape it so that you're both successful for yourself and for the company, the partnership, or whatever you're, pursuing.
Love that. I love that. Yes, because I find oftentimes we get into that space of, well, I'm not qualified, or I haven't ticked off all the boxes. And that's part of, like, when I developed Women Leadership Talk, it was about how to bring women forward to share those stories of how they've said yes. And it's not just a solo job. And so, that's one thing maybe we can talk about is even who have been some of those mentors or sponsors that have encouraged you or helped you navigate, these different careers and roles that you've had, and maybe even share what some of those most important lessons have been for you.
Yes. And I've been very fortunate, Vicki. I've had many mentors, both men and women, and also young and at the same age of me, if not older at that moment in time. And I will say to the audience that I've also relied upon coaches as well. So I think we have mentors, and then we seek, relationships with coaches, and coaches can really assist you at times of transition to be in your corner, to help you sort of figure out a strategy, or how do you get from A to B? What does it look like for your possibility? And lessons I've learned, oh my gosh, there's so many. There's the art of diplomacy. I think I've always been taught that if you are the best listener in the room, and that you are considerate of all of the positions, and that you seek diplomacy, it very often provides for a better outcome. I think if we go in with a closed mind or hard position, we often don't achieve what we've set out to do. The power of inviting people to the table of great diversity to collaborate around something. Very often, Vicki, I enter into certain things and I'm like, I don't know how to solve this. So being able to ensure that, I bring people to the table, those are important messages that I learned from mentors. There's another aspect too. Those are positive ones, if I could say, but there's like owning your own mistakes. Like if you majorly mess up, you own it and you fix it and you communicate what the plan is. I think a lot of scenarios we lose faith and goodwill because we don't communicate it quickly. You need to fess that up and say, you know what, that typo in that large marketing campaign was me. 3 a.m. in the morning. I'm sorry. This is how I've found a solution. This is how I fixed it or addressed it. And, we try and put that in our back pocket. We're not going to do it again. I'll tell you a funny story, Vicki, that your audience might appreciate. It's about the art of moving intentionally and thoughtfully, and quite frankly, slowly. So when I was a young communications person in a corporate setting, we would have our results. So to the shareholders and to the street, we would have to give our each month, each quarter, we would have to give our results to the shareholders. And my hair would be on fire, Vicki. I would be running from one office to the other. I would meet with the board of directors, get the change on the press release, and then run. I've seen these memes on Facebook of, this large goose running and making this big noise. Finally, a gentleman at the time, who I found to be a wonderful mentor as a board member, said, V, stop running. You're making us nervous. If you move slowly, no one else knows what's going on. He told me to change from being that, running goose to a swan. No one knows what's happening underneath the water. Don't let them see you sweat. Move intentionally, move slowly. But your feet can be kicking like mad under the water, but no one sees that. So anyway, that was just a visual that I always kept with me. And I do share that with a lot of my startup mentees and others, just to say, you know what? Don't let them see you paddling frantically under the water.
Oh, I love that. That's such a great analogy. And so many nuggets that you shared there about possibilities, like seeing yourself with that possibility and being okay to fail, but fail fast, right? Like it's okay. We're human, right? We all screw up. And so that's okay, but own it, take responsibility for it and do it quickly so that you can recover. And love that piece of advice. Like that is so incredibly powerful, because you're right. Nobody knows what's really going on inside. And so even sometimes I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to like say the exact words, and then we ridicule ourselves, beat ourselves up with that self-talk saying, well, you didn't say it this way. Well, nobody knows that you were even going to say it that way in the first place. So, maybe that's what you needed to say to get attention. So love that, Veronica. That's awesome. And so you mentioned like you will share some of those lessons with mentees. So how do you pay that forward? Because I think that's a really important conversation. We sometimes forget the importance of taking that person by the hand and giving them some guidance?
Yeah, I've reached a point in my career, where maybe a little bit of wisdom is set in, and I would like to really try and help the younger generation, benefit from the mistakes and from the good steps that I've made along the path. I often share a lot of those lessons with my mentees. Or anybody who will listen, Vicky. But, really, I get a lot of fuel and energy from connecting with people. And, I have a lot of people who reach out and say to me, like, what would you do in this case? Can you help me get a job? Can you connect me? And, it takes 5 minutes for me to make a connection. And if I can lean in and pull someone up to get them to a space, a place, a job, access resources, convene with someone, that's a really important piece for me. And I'm rewarded by it. I see people succeed that way. I often spend time listening. So, you have these exuberant young people, others who are transitioning to different roles, really trying to listen about what are they trying to achieve. Yes, they're asking me for a connection. Yes, they're asking me for advice. And, sometimes that creeps in, I feel a bit of imposter, how can I really, understand the full picture and provide them? But I do try and make sure that they are able to really articulate to me, what are you trying to achieve? And when you're looking at moving into a new role or making a connection with somebody, what is the alignment for you of what you're trying to achieve? What are the values? Is there alignment? How important is it to you? And if you're going to ask somebody for help, you really need to be ensure that you understand your ask. And so I coach, quite a lot, whether they would like to hear it from me or not, but very often they're open to it. But when a young woman or young entrepreneur comes to me, it's really about, are you able to articulate your ask? Because I know, like you, Vicky, if someone asks for help, it is really easy and delightful for me to do that. So that's a little bit of what I try and, there are some technical coaching that I do that falls within my wheelhouse in terms of branding and communication, but really that art of understanding what you're trying to achieve and how you articulate that. I come by it honestly in my communications background is really helping young people and others articulate what your ask is and how you envision you achieving it. And that then results, perhaps in making a connection or a collaboration or inviting them to an event or connecting them to an HR leader who might be able to help them with respect to a job.
Love that. Love that. And it like, not only have you highlighted some of your own values, just as you were expressing that. So, very much connectedness is a strong value for you, but I've actually witnessed you doing that when we were at the Bridge the Gap event, and I saw you having conversation and very intently listening to one of our emerging leaders on, what are they trying to accomplish, and just having that easy conversation. And I know on the other side, like, she was so grateful for you, asking number one and prompting questions that she probably hadn't even asked herself yet. And I think we forget that, right? We forget the power of how that can impact someone. And so you do it very naturally, which is beautiful.
Thank you, Vicky.
So yes, of course. And I've seen it firsthand. So I can witness that. So what about being a woman? When you think about some of the challenges that we face in navigating very senior leadership roles, maybe just share an example of what's been a big lesson for you in how you've been able to navigate.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, and something that many of us, as we move through our careers, really have to either embrace or choose to pioneer a path. I have been blessed with being in a lot of evolving roles towards more senior positions, I have had to ensure that I positioned myself as a trusted advisor at the table. And I have been in, tech, perhaps back in my day, if I could say that, was very much male dominated. And there are still very much, sectors, industries, even markets that are male dominated. And, what has really served me well are quite a few of the things that I've already talked about. We bristle when we hear us being called, when we're assertive, we bristle when we hear that that's a form of being naggy or bitchy. Well, it's not. It is about being assertive and understanding what you bring to the table. It's about understanding your value, your worth, what your experience lends to that conversation at that time. And I think we have to, again, I default to my communications background, being able to articulate a position, particularly in, a role where there are quite a lot of, male voices. Again, we need to talk about diversity, right? We need to talk about equity and inclusion. But in the absence of that, I have found that, very often, if you have a clearly articulated story, input, feedback that is constructive, we can be emotional, we can be vulnerable, but very often we have to start first with the facts and alignment of what we know to be factual and what would improve the outcome, the product, the service. That articulation and delivery is important about gaining trust. And I think that regardless if it's a room full of men or a room full of women or a diverse group, being able to do that is a critically important skill and something that you bring, to the table. But really understanding, what do I bring to this and what is my value, is sort of the baseline. And then I think everything comes into place. I've often, Vicky, been in this scenario where I'm the only woman at the room, and I've grown comfortable in being that. I don't revel in it. I would like more women. I like to bring more women to the table, but get me to the table and then I will do that. But very often I have found my male colleagues to be, very supportive, but I think it starts with that conversation that states, factually, clarity, and articulating what we're all trying to achieve at the table. I hope that's, helpful in sort of how I approach it.
Absolutely. Yes. And what I heard there, I think just to really pull out some of those nuggets, is believe in your worth, know your worth, right? And it's not really about, it doesn't matter who's at the table. If you have that confidence within yourself to be able to articulate your position, and also be open to what others have to say. But when you're really passionate about it, make sure you're expressing it in a way that people can understand it. But the real core to that is you feeling worthy. So you have that confidence, Veronica, to sit at the table, right? And that you're equally deserving to be at the table. And so I think that sometimes that's where to your point, doesn't matter whether it's men or women, super diverse, it's you internally knowing what your worth is, and then being able to express that. So that would be the takeaway I would have from that comment. Love it. Love it. And so you mentioned diversity, right? And having diverse thought, diverse backgrounds at the table. Why is that important to you?
Oh, goodness. Other than, the data and, the research that is out there, having a greater diversity unlocks, creativity, innovation, a better outcome, a better product, service. And quite frankly, the bottom line, companies are recognizing diversity in our approach to solving, whether it be a service challenge, a place in the market for a particular product, we need to build outcomes, products, and solutions that, are for a diverse background, taking that moment to really understand the importance of diversity in approaching the resolution or a solution is critically important. And it's demonstrated in spades. We have seen many products, as an example, consumer products that have gone out. And guess what? We forgot about 50% of the market. And so I think, the trends, that the changes are happening. Companies are recognizing the importance of bringing underrepresented groups, women, a diverse group to the table. And I see a lot of this, and I'm really happy to see that, happen. I live in the world of innovation, particularly in the roles that I am in quite recently. And, Vicki, innovation is an interesting equalizer. It is a place where I find that diversity is welcome, inclusion is welcome, because everybody knows that it's going to get us to a better result. And so I see innovators and entrepreneurs in this space, be it women, be it underrepresented groups, knocking it out of the park, because innovation it drops all of that. Now, don't get me started on, investing and financing, but for the pure,
oh yes,
yeah, let's not go there. That's another place that we have to,
that's another
to
podcast.
work on and fix. But the art of innovation is this beautiful space where there has to be EDI. There has to be, because it's going to render a much better product, and the innovation is that much more at a different level. So to include everyone is, it just makes so much sense for so many reasons.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And, it's interesting because we as beings get comfortable with our small circle, and then we forget to get curious and ask those questions of how does this land with, a different group or a different community. And, for myself, even, it's like, how can we be more inclusive? How can we, and people even ask me that, they're like, why don't you have men on your podcast? And I'm like, well, women in leadership talk, but I have had some men, and I'm starting to have a few more men on who really do bring that diverse lens. Because it has also, I've been like, okay, Vicki, are you doing the reverse? Right. And so really questioning myself of how do I open space up so that we, learn more holistically from each other. So,
and I'll just, and I'll just add to that, it is, it is messy, it is never perfect as we learn individually and collectively how we go about the business of being inclusive. I have inadvertently, failed or been a lack of information to have made a mistake in trying to be inclusive. And so it's really about understanding and willing to take that risk to be inclusive. That I think is important. Men can be fabulous allies. And I think it all starts with sort of a courageous conversation and going to an underrepresented group, to a diverse group to say, how do we tackle this? May not know exactly how we do this, but I am opening up the table to have that conversation. So, innovation is messy. And I think also our application of being inclusive can also be, but we need to get over that. We need to take that risk because it really is honoring that inclusive approach.
Yes. And it also brings humanity closer, right? When we can become more inclusive, it's amazing how those connections can just flourish, and the positive ripple effect that can have on a community, on a business, on society in total.
Yep.
And so I'm just cognizant of our time here, and
Mhm.
we need to start to wrap up. But when we look at bridging the gap, and you were part of a wonderful panel discussion we did with a group looking at government, education, technology, leadership. To you, what are some of those common themes, and what do you think we need to do to better prepare this next generation?
Well, I mean, Vicky, I believe, these podcasts that you are curating, the events that you put together, are important platforms, mechanisms to bring younger generations, to give them an opportunity to not only be part of a conversation, to learn from that. I think, many of us are in roles that allow us to convene these kinds of opportunities that will help bridge, the younger generation to really understand that it's achievable, that we're human, that it's messy, that it means we have to be vulnerable. I think it's about conversations and listening to allow bridging opportunities to happen. I honestly just think that we have to sort of lean in, at least I do from my personal perspective. A portion of my time, is committed to trying to ensure that we give the opportunity for our younger generations to learn, to see how we got there. I speak, with my daughter on many occasions. She's a 19-year-old in her second year of university, and often she says to me, "Mom, I don't have a clear line of sight of what my job is going to be. My friends are in engineering, my friends are nurses, or they can foresee themselves as being accountants." And what I've often said to her is, you need to understand that the path we all take is a very different one, but we have to follow it, and it will take us to where we're going to go. And I think so, having opportunities, like your panel we were part of, like these kinds of podcasts, different events where we mentor and allow that opportunity for younger generations to ask us those questions, and to see that it's not always perfect. The navigation can be really wonky, is important.
Definitely.
And I'll just add, we also have a role to call upon different organizations, those in positions to also convene and to create the space, for these kind of conversations in communities and government levels, in different organizations. The university is a wonderful opportunity. It curates it naturally, but there are other organizations that I think we have to call upon and, use our voice at our point in time to bring them together. So maybe not the best, the answer, but I think there are many ways that we can, ask that of different organizations and be the bridge ourselves, to help sort of pull up the younger generations into that conversation.
Lovely. Yeah, no, I love that. That was actually a great answer, great response. And if we, our audience that's listening, like, think about how can you start to, take the emerging leaders and bring them into, your experiences and what you have gone through, what you've learned, and how do we help them navigate that? Because I do think part of it is just having the conversations, right? And what are they struggling with? Like, your daughter's example is beautiful, right? Like, she's second year and she's asking some pretty big questions about what does it look like, right? So I love that. I love that. Well, Veronica, thank you so much. Your leadership is so beautiful. And, there's been so many great nuggets that I've heard you share today with respect to believing in yourself, knowing that you're, at the right place at the right time, saying more yes, and seeing those possibilities, but being very intentional about it. And then looking at, how do you expand? How do you grow? No matter what that role is, no matter who you're coming in contact with. That's what I've taken from our discussion today. And that's it. To me, that's great leadership. So thank you for sharing that with us today. I'm super, super grateful for it. And I know that our audience is as well. So thank you for joining us and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Vicki. I've really enjoyed my time.
Awesome. Awesome. And to our audience, thank you. We know you have a choice as to where you listen. I'm sure you're going to take lots of great tips and nuggets from Veronica's conversation today. So if you have further questions, you can reach out to me. I'm happy to share those with Veronica. But would love to hear your thoughts on, how we provide even more information for you, or, bringing forward topics that are of interest to you. If you're curious about your own leadership and how you're being as a leader, you can go on our website and take our free quiz on leadership at www.willempowered, that's 1L.com. And I'd be curious there as to how your results came back. So please do share that with us. So Veronica, thank you. Audience, thank you. And we look forward to seeing you on our next WIL Talk podcast. Have a great day, everyone.